My name is Cindy. I live with my parents-in-law and my young daughter in my in-laws' house. The reason being, I lost my beloved husband, Tom, a year ago. It was so sudden. 3 years ago, we moved in with my in-laws to eventually take over their family business. At first, I was nervous, but my in-laws were very kind to us and didn't interfere too much. Whenever we invited them for a weekend drive, they seemed genuinely happy. Tom often worried about me, saying,
"Are you sure you're not pushing yourself too hard? We could live separately, even if you're helping with the family business."
But having lost my parents at a young age, every day was joyful and fulfilling for me. Soon our daughter was born, and the bonds within our family grew stronger. Then one day, everything changed. "Cindy, something terrible has happened. We just got a call." A call came into my in-laws' office, informing us of Tom's accident. By the time we rushed over, it was too late. Our happiness crumbled so abruptly. I loved my in-laws, but I couldn't impose on them without Tom. I was anxious about finding a new job and a new place to live as a single mother, but I knew I couldn't rely on them forever. Once Tom's funeral and the sorting of his belongings were over, I told my in-laws thank you for everything. Once I find a place, my daughter and I will move out. Sarah, my mother-in-law, hugged me and said through tears, "You're our precious daughter, Cindy. We can't leave you alone at a time like this." Eric, my father-in-law, nodded repeatedly, saying they'd like us to stay as long as we wanted. For the first time, I truly understood the warmth and importance of parents. I broke down in tears and thanked them both. Months passed. The pain of losing Tom never fully healed, but little by little, we were reclaiming our happiness. Then one day, Lily, my sister-in-law, who had moved out 5 years ago after getting married, returned to the in-laws' house due to her divorce. It was sudden. We were all watching TV when Lily burst in crying and blurted out, "Mom, Kevin is being so unfair. He's asking for alimony in the divorce. Isn't that terrible? He should be the one paying me." Turns out Lily had an affair and was served divorce papers. At first, I thought Kevin must be a terrible person, but as I listened, that didn't seem to be the case. Lily had been spending Kevin's money without working or doing housework, and had an affair out of spite when he scolded her. Sarah tried to console her, saying, "You're in the wrong, but marriage is a long journey. If you apologize sincerely, maybe." Lily awkwardly looked away. Apparently, this wasn't her first affair. All her past affairs came to light, and now they were really getting a divorce. And she didn't have the money to pay the alimony. My in-laws were dumbfounded, but couldn't abandon their only daughter, so they ended up covering her alimony. And so, Lily ended up staying at her parents' house. From that point on, my life took a drastic turn. "Cindy, I'm thirsty. Can you make some tea?" Sorry, I'm just about to head out." "What? Didn't you hear me? I said I'm thirsty." "Fine, got it." Ever since Lily returned, I had become her personal servant. making her coffee, going shopping for her, cleaning the shower when she wanted to use it. Sure, I'm living here as a guest, but I have my own life too. I can't always do what she says, but if I refuse, she'd always retort, "It's only natural for a parasite like you to work the most. If you don't like it, leave. I feel cramped with you here too." What's worse, she'd pick times when my in-laws weren't around. I could tell my in-laws and they might scold her, but I hesitated to speak ill of their daughter. And besides, I'm not their real daughter. I had my own fears about what would happen if I really had to leave. Thankfully, my daughter was never mistreated, and I thought it was best to endure it for now. Then one day, I heard Eric's loud voice from the living room.
Why are you so reckless with money? I'm confiscating your card.
Soon after, I heard Lily's tearful voice. "Stop it. My life will be over without it."
Quiet. Calm down.
Apparently, she had maxed out my in-laws' credit card. Sarah had given her the card because they didn't have cash at home, and Lily wanted to go to the beauty salon. And unbelievably, she spent $5,000 at the mall that very day. After being scolded by Eric, Lily locked herself in her room. My in-laws apologized to me for their daughter's behavior. Honestly, I was relieved they finally scolded her. I hoped this would be a wake-up call for her. But that faint hope soon crumbled. Now that her card was taken away, Lily started using my belongings without permission. Clothes, bags, watches, even snacks I had bought. She took whatever she wanted. I finally lost my patience and confronted her. "Lily, it's really inconvenient when you use my stuff without asking. You have plenty of your own brand name things, right?" "Ugh, I get bored, okay? I want to use different things. And don't act so high and mighty when you're just a parasite here." Just then, Sarah walked into the room, wondering what was going on. Lily immediately cozied up to her. "Cindy is harassing me. She said I can't borrow her clothes." Sarah looked exasperated and said, "You probably started it with your selfishness." Then she turned to me and apologized. I was grateful that Sarah didn't blame me, but I doubt she thought it was a big deal. I couldn't complain any further since she had apologized. So my silent battle with Lily continued, with my in-laws none the wiser about the thefts. A few weeks later, as the anniversary of Tom's death approached, I was in the yard, tending to our road bike. Cycling on long trips was a hobby Tom and I shared. We'd been to hills with beautiful stars, rivers full of nature, even as far as Boston. We hadn't gone since our daughter was born, but we'd always talked about going as a family someday.
I'd love to find a big, safe campground where we can all go cycling together,
Tom had said, and I remember his happy face as he said it. To honor Tom and keep our promise, I decided to maintain the road bike once a year. I knew Lily had seen me doing it, but this was something I couldn't lend out. To make sure she didn't use it without permission, I kept the key in a locked desk in the office. Then came the anniversary. My in-laws and I went to church in the morning. We'd invited Lily, but she claimed to have other plans. As usual, my in-laws were exasperated, but we didn't force her and went to church ourselves. I've mostly adjusted to life without Tom, But today, the sadness of that day came flooding back. My in-laws seemed to feel the same, praying at the grave with tears in their eyes. I bet he's doing well in heaven. I took care of the road bike for him, I thought as I prayed. I remember Tom, who always thought of me, our daughter, and my in-laws. Though I've been the one leaning on others, I resolved to support my in-laws in Tom's place. After finishing our prayers and having a meal, we headed home. My in-laws said they had plans and went ahead, so I returned to the house with my daughter. It was hot today, so I thought I'd offer some cold jelly to Tom when I got back. As I entered the entrance, I noticed it was gone. The road bike. Could Lily have taken it? I rushed into the house to find her watching TV in the living room. Whether she noticed me or not, she didn't take her eyes off the TV. When I asked if she'd been on the road bike, I couldn't believe her response. "Oh, that? It's gone." I was stunned. "Where?" She said probably at a park in Brooklyn, which is at least an hour's drive away. "How did you get it there?" She said her boyfriend drove her. Turns out they couldn't find the key, so her boyfriend broke the lock. This was the first I'd heard of Lily having a boyfriend, but it was clear he had no common sense. But none of that mattered now. I had to get that road bike back, no matter what. I called every place I could think of, the park Lily mentioned, nearby facilities, and the police station. No one had seen it. I even drove to Brooklyn and searched late into the night. Still no bike. It made sense. The lock was broken, practically inviting theft. It was probably long gone by now. And today of all days was Tom's memorial. I had cleaned it up, hoping to make him happy. As I searched, the emotions I'd been holding back flooded out. I was so sad and frustrated that I couldn't stop crying. I finally gave up for the day, filed a lost property report with the police, and decided to head home. I called Lily to confirm the exact time she was at the park. "Oh, it didn't turn up, huh?" Her casual tone infuriated me more than usual, and I couldn't hold back this time. "Lily, you knew that bike was important to Tom, right? How could you break the lock and take it?" Her usual self returned. "Look, if you're not family and you're mooching off us, you should be more tolerant," she said. I couldn't let it slide today. "I may not be your blood relative, but I'm your brother's wife. This is unforgivable." She retorted, "Wife, my brother is dead. You're just exploiting his memory to mooch off my parents. You're so cheap and vulgar." Exploiting his memory? I couldn't believe she said that. I pay my own living expenses and contribute extra for groceries. She's the one relying on her parents financially without contributing or even getting a job. I wrapped my words in diplomacy as I responded, and as expected, she exploded in anger. "If you're so well off, why don't you just leave? Oh, and leave my brother's inheritance behind. He was a kind man. He'd want his poor sister to have it," she said and hung up. When I got home after filing the lost property report, Lily was gone. Maybe she went out with her boyfriend. Eric approached me, looking serious.
"Cindy, I'm sorry about Lily,"
he said. So she had talked to him. Just as I thought that, Sarah said something unbelievable. Even if she borrowed it with your permission, she must have managed it poorly.
Wait, permission? How could she lie so blatantly? But looking back, there were so many unbelievable things she had done. Taking and eating other people's stuff. Splurging with my parents-in-law's credit card. Why had I let her get away with so much? If I had been stricter, maybe the road bike wouldn't have gone missing. I felt the need to tell my parents-in-law everything, not just about the bike, but about all her actions up to this point. After I finished, Eric was visibly shaking with what seemed like anger, and Sarah was in tears. "I'm sorry for speaking ill of your daughter," I said. Both of them thanked me for bringing it up and apologized for not noticing sooner. My parents-in-law said, "To belittle even her own brother's memory, we've been too lenient." They were concerned that scolding her wouldn't be enough anymore. Could we somehow punish her? She probably wouldn't change unless she felt some real pain. And that pain would likely have to be financial. I had a somewhat drastic idea. After consulting with my parents-in-law, we decided to put the plan into action immediately. 3 days later, I decided to visit my grandmother, who raised me for about a week. I go back once a year to show her the face of her great-grandchild. As I was leaving the house with a large suitcase, I crossed paths with Lily at the entrance. "Wow, Cindy, what's with the big luggage? Finally leaving?" I told her I'd be gone for a while and left the in-laws' house. Yes, I wouldn't be back for some time. If my hunch was correct, she would snoop around my room. And then perhaps I could reclaim a peaceful life. About a month and a half later, Lily had been in a great mood. She had been buying brand name bags, watches, and jewelry one after another, even though she wasn't working. And no one in the family questioned or asked her why. That was to be expected. Everything was going according to our plan. And if our predictions were correct, she was about to fall into a hell of her own making. About 2 weeks later, the moment finally came. Lily burst through the door and started yelling at me. "Hey, my credit card payment didn't go through. What's going on?" "What are you talking about?" she said without showing any sign of guilt. "I tried to use my brother's inheritance to pay off the credit card, and the card company called to say it didn't go through." Just as we had expected. I left the ATM card for Tom's inheritance account on the table before leaving the house. Lily, knowing I'd be away, linked her credit card to that bank account. I figured she'd do something like this, especially since she didn't know the ATM PIN and usually shopped with a credit card. "Did you use Tom's inheritance for your shopping?" Eric interjected. She usually wouldn't discuss such matters in front of my parents-in-law, but she must have been desperate. She tried to cover it up. "Well, it's family money, and I thought Cindy was okay with it." "I never said that," I firmly replied. Lily wouldn't back down. "Come on, it's just one time. Why couldn't the payment go through with all that inheritance? Did you spend it all, Cindy?" I was prepared for this. I couldn't afford to lose. I had the bank freeze the account because of the risk of theft. Good thing I did. Turns out it was theft after all. Lily retorted, "What? I just used it a little. That's not theft." I shot back, What are you talking about? This is clear-cut theft. After all, we're strangers, not family, right?
She turned to Sarah, pleading, "Do something."
But today, even Sarah wouldn't help.
"Lily, this is a crime. Not just this, but everything you've done. We just didn't notice, and Cindy was forgiving. If you don't change now, you'll face worse consequences."
Realizing no one would help, "I won't pay. I can't." She started chanting. "If you won't admit to the theft, we'll have to involve the police," I said, picking up my phone. Finally grasping the gravity of the situation, she turned pale and grabbed my hand.
"Please, don't do that."
Eric yelled at her. "Then take responsibility. What you're doing is a crime." Unable to do anything, she whispered,
"Fine, I get it."
And so, Lily ended up paying for the branded items she bought with multiple credit cards. She couldn't pay it all at once, so she switched to installments and is now working as an office worker. Since that incident, she stopped treating me like a servant and taking things without permission. As for me, I continue to help with my parents-in-law's family business and live peacefully. Fortunately, the family business is doing well, and we're even considering rebuilding the house. I'm glad I consulted my parents-in-law instead of holding back. After a lot of complicated twists and turns, I hope to hold on to the peace I've finally grasped.